It's not as simple as bad kids, though, is it, Tanveer? It's probably more likely family breakdowns. I mean, they're not getting that right environment.
This is beginning. One thing I'd add, and there was a great piece by one of my colleagues in The Australian a few weeks ago talking about essentially how modern schools must tie in with parents with parenting strategies as well. So increasingly, rather than outsource all this parenting to teachers, it's almost to be a bit more kind of interaction between sort of schools and parents, setting boundaries, etc. And in many of these kids, they'll have fairly broken families, may lack boundaries, all this sort of stuff. So obviously it begins there. And there's something going wrong there that we're not keeping them at school. Many of them are getting, expelled or whatever else is happening. But I agree with Claire that sometimes we have too much of a softly approach with kids, and they often do well with strong boundaries and sticks when required. In the long term, obviously, we want them in jobs, we want them thriving in all respects, but we can overdo the rehabilitative focus with an element of the sticks.
We can do both at the same time. It's not one or the other, and I think that's important.
We're talking about gangs, and there was another gang crime incident in Adelaide, youth crime, that they believe a very well-known doctor died as a result of that. So these sorts of problems are popping up everywhere. When it's a gang, is it the case that if you can take out some of the hardest offenders, some of the recidivists, that maybe you imprison and take a few of them out of the system and the others are easier to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, that can happen.
They follow leaders, yeah?
Yes, but they also then have a look at what's happened to other people and, OK, well, they're actually toughening up and putting these penalties in place. And like I said, it has to be a multi-pronged approach at the same time. And I don't like where this conversation goes to say, oh, well, we should be looking at the broken homes. Yes, we should be doing that. Oh, we should be, no, we should have penalties. Of course, yes, we should be doing that as well.
Yeah.
Why can't we address it from the huge systemic problem at the same time as we've got the legislation, we've got the penalties there, use them.
We should add here, Chris, that overall crime is on the decrease. There are pockets of youth crime that are making more news, and there are parts of the country where that has increased.
Although in Queensland, I know they've taken out some categories, so the youth crime's going down because of the way they collect the statistics, apparently.
I'm sure that's...
I think your thing on teachers is important because a lot of parents, you read about this and you speak to teachers, they're trying to outsource more of it.
That's right.
You teachers, you raise my kids, you got to sort this stuff out. Well, no, they're important teachers, but the most important people are surely the parents at home or whoever the caregivers are.
That's not just marginalised communities, right, or disadvantaged communities.
It's everywhere,
This is, middle to upper class kids as well in the cities,
Now, I want to get on to the census. They're changing some of the questions in the next census to be handed out by the ABS, and one of them, this cracks me up, Tanveer, because they've all got all these sensitivities these days, and one of the questions is going to be, they're going to ask your sex at birth. Not your sex or your gender, your sex at birth. Now, we all know why they want to do that, but it's to pick up the tiny fraction of the community who might have transitioned. Isn't that just going to put off most people? They'll see that question and just think, these guys are wankers, I'm not even going to fill out the census.
Yeah, it is curious how institutionally everything seems to want to move to incorporate, as you say, this tiny segment in terms of political correctness. I mean, look, I am interested in how many people are identifying this way, etc. I think they're very useful trends. But it seems to be a ridiculous question. Yes, sex at birth. If sure, down the track if they transition, etc.
I think the hospitals have got birth records that will, if they want to check on that, they can find those stats. So there's a few other changes, but I just think you just put people off.
I don't know. I'm actually kind of glad they're going to track it. And that's because I'm concerned at the absolute exponential rise. And when we're talking about providing intervention services and for myself discussing why this rise is happening, I actually don't have any firm stats of how many, and correlated with their age on the census, we can have a look at this particular age group is suddenly all identifying, and we actually don't know as professionals, we're really grappling with, overseas stats versus our stats. It's hard. And so I actually think I want these figures to be able to...
Well, if they're reliable,
the more we know, the better. So in some ways, I am swayed by what Claire's saying. I
noticed the surf lifesavers are getting into all this gender awareness now. I would have thought when you're in your bathers at the beach, it's pretty obvious where you line up. But
the budgie smugglers can't hide us.
I was going to say, when I'm out drowning at sea, I don't care what they call me. You can mispronounce my pronouns.
Exactly.
I don't care. Can you do your job? Can you say
what you like? I'll love you forever, no matter who you are, because you'll be a better swimmer than me.
It is interesting, such an iconic kind of slightly, I guess you'd call a sexualised sort of institution like surf lifesaving, and sort of a bit blokey too, is also going down this road. like what's next? I don't know, like the tradie association. Like it's like how much? Like I don't know. It is extraordinary that they're all embracing this.
Yeah, sure is. Thanks for joining us again, Tanveer and Claire. We'll catch up with you again next week, I hope.